We'll now look at building a simple spinner and how it is done start to finish. You can see the spinner itself is relatively simple. It is not very large, less than 3 inches across at its widest points. It has 4 holes, and each of the holes is the exact same size and spaced equidistantly so that from the center point out to each center of each circle is equal. Likewise, the center point from each individual circle to the center point is also the same. This spacing is important so that when the weights are added in at the end of the print, it spins evenly and balanced around this center axis. If I press my X-ray vision, I can see inside that there are no lines on the inside. What you do see here is you see the indentations of these small details that I placed on the spinner. But for the most part, it is a relatively simple project to make. Just have to make sure a couple things are correct and a couple things are nice and neat as we go through and make this. To start the spinner, we will start a new file. And a couple things you want to do before you start. You want to make sure that you have your window open over here as your tray. And you don't really need any of these other trays. The one thing you do need to see is entity information. It's important that we know what size various parts of the drawing are, and this entity information will say that. For example, if I just quickly draw a circle here and then select the circle, I can look up in here and it'll tell me that the radius of the circle, meaning from the center point straight out to the edge, is 205 feet and approximately, and 24 segments make up that line. 24 segments, you can see each part of the circle here from line to line would be one segment. Right now it has 24 segments. The more segments you have, the smoother the circle appears and the smoother it will print out. We will actually leave the default segment of 24 on for this particular spinner. Before we begin, let's take a moment to go through and look at a couple things here. If we go to our model information window, this shows us the units of measure that we are using for our drawing. While ultimately we will be converting this entire drawing into millimeters, for now we will stay in inches as it's the most common format that we are used to. So we'll keep it in inches. And precision means we can snap down to the 16th of an inch. We can go smaller if we want, but for our purposes, 16 is more than enough. We don't need to get any more precise than that. We will be drawing our spinner in inches and then resizing it in millimeters, as it is easier to build a model at a larger scale and then shrink it down when we're all finished. And the way we'll start that is by clicking on our circle tool. And as you bring your circle tool out, you'll notice in the bottom right hand corner it says sides 24. Again, the sides are the segments, or the number of lines that make up this particular shape. While they can be smoother with more segments or rougher with less segments, 24 is what we will use for our default setting. If I wanted to change the number of sides, I could just simply enter in a number and press enter, and that would change the number of sides. But for us, 24 will be fine, and I will start by clicking on the origin point, dragging straight up. Notice not off to the side, because what you want to happen here is you'll notice when your pencil comes up, you're at an intersection point where two lines meet. Alright, we want to come straight up our green axis. We don't want it so that we have a middle of one of these line segments on the green axis. We want the actual intersection of these two lines there. Okay. Now I'm going to enter in a radius. Now we're going to enter our radius in as feet for now, and then we'll resize it later. We want our total diameter to be 22.2 feet. So in order to do that, we will enter in the radius measurement, which will be 11.1 feet. So if I just start typing 11.1 and then the apostrophe, the foot symbol, I press enter and it goes away. Well, did it really go away? No. What happened was it was a lot smaller than the view we were looking at. So if we go to our zoom extents, we can look right at it. It's important for this drawing that you're always looking at it from the top view down, and that you're always working as large as you possibly can in that particular view. So again, just you can click through your views. Top down is where you want to be. Once we have our center circle, what we can do is we can lay out the position of the rest of our circles. Now, since all of these circles will be the same size, instead of creating new ones, we'll copy the ones we have to ensure the fact that they are all exactly the same size. If I take my move tool by pressing M, I go to my midpoint and then I come straight down. And here's why it's important that you have a segment that's right down the green axis so you can snap it. I'm going to press Control to get my plus sign, and then I can create a copy here. Now, as you move out, you get further and further away from the center, and the wider the spinner will get. Spinners are very short or small in diameter, usually no more than 3 inches at the most. Majority of the times, these holes for the bearings are going to be very close to each other, depending on how wide you want it to be. So if I put this right about here, and you can eyeball this based upon the spinners you see. Remember, we're working in an upgraded scale, so this actually isn't to scale the way we're drawing this, but if I place this approximately this far away, and if you look at the number in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see how it says 24 feet 8 and 11/16 of an inch. Let's round that up. Let's just say 24 feet right there, and you drop it down. And now you can see that there's an equal space here. We want a total of 3 spinners all the way around. So in order to copy this completely around with the circle selected, and this part is real important, so watch it first, then go back and do it. Take your rotate tool and find the origin of the first circle that you created with the other one selected, both inside and the outside edge. Click one time and lock the center point on the origin point, and next you will move the mouse up to the top of the circle. I'm going to click once, and now that sets the rotate tool on that circle. But I don't want to move this circle, I want to keep this one and make a copy. So once you press the second time, click to turn the control key on, and now you'll see that the circle will begin to copy itself all the way around. Now we want 3 of these, a total of 3. So we're going to copy this twice and make it 2 more versions of this particular circle. Now this part's real important to make sure that we get proper spacing here. As I move around, you'll notice in the bottom right hand corner it says the angle at which I'm coming off, and that's from this starting position. So this straight up point is angle is 0, 0. As I come down, you can see the angle changes. 90, 180, 270, all the way around. Now I have 3 circles, so I need to divide 360 degrees by 3 so that I get 3 even angles. If I divide it, I get 120. So what I can do is I can start to move and I can find my snap point of 120, or I can just actually type in 120, press enter, and there is my second position. With that in place, if you have not selected anything else, you can press times or X2, press enter, and that will automatically give you another circle that is spaced evenly apart. At this point, you have all of the diameters of the spots for the bearing of your spinner that you're going to place. Now it would be just a matter of drawing inside the rest of the angles that you want to draw. So the last thing we have to do from here is to actually give ourselves the area in which the bearings will fit. Now if you remember, the bearings are going to sit inside of this area. So what we have to do is we click the midpoint and we come up just a little bit and we move to the outside. We have to move to the outside because the space inside of the circle is what is actually going to be the bearing. So let's just move up for now, and let's see. We'll make this 12 feet up. Make sure you're moving up from the center point and snapping the green axis line to there. And we'll do that with the rest of these circles as well. Again, find your center point, snap, move straight down, and you've moved 12. they'll connect there. Same thing here. And you'll notice if you're doing it correctly, everything will start to snap to the same positions and everything will be nice and even. And from here, the actual place where your spinner will sit will be inside of those rings. So this circle on the inside has to stay intact at all times. The next thing we'll do is we'll take another circle and I'll start at the origin point and come pretty much straight up. Now this is going to determine the overall width of your spinner. So your spinner is not going to be this tall. Usually they pretty much come right up into the edge depending on how small they are. If you wanted to make it as small as you possibly could, you would stop at the outer edge here and your spinner would have very little distance around the outside. Usually when I do this, I'll come out a little bit further to give myself some room to design with. Because what's going to happen is we will eventually delete this space and cut out what we don't want to make our spinner design. The other thing you want to consider here is now that we're working with a slightly bigger size circle, you could see the segments that are here are very well defined. And you could see each one. That's because there's only 24 segments in each circle. If we take our circle tool and before we click again, you'll see our sides. I'm going to up this to say 100 sides. Press enter. And start moving up again, being careful to stay right in the midpoint. You'll notice that when I do drop it into place, I'll make it just a little bit wider here. Our circle is a lot smoother because if you look carefully at it, there are still line segments. But there are more of them, so it's easier to see. If you look to your entity information window, which if you've not brought it up yet is under your window default tray, show tray, make sure entity information is open, and that will show you the segments of the line. It's very important that the outer circle is 100 and each of these inner circles at this point are 24. Very important. Once we've gotten this far, let's take a moment to save our work, as this is the base spinner that if we mess up to, we can always come back to this point and adjust. So make a copy or save this as original, and then when you open it up, you might even want to save a copy as, and then you could just put spinner 1, and you could start your first spinner design. If it messes up, you can always come back to this original.